The Thing is no alien to comic books, and naturally, there are innumerable horrific monsters that have graced the pages of the Thing comics. One such horrific monster was the Deseado-Morph Thing, a creature that could dwarf airplanes and destroy entire platoons of soldiers. But what makes the Deseado Thing more fearsome is its uncanny resemblance to a Xenomorph queen. Yep, the alien first seen in James Cameron's Aliens. In this video, I'm going to explore the story of Dr. Deseado from The Thing from Another World, Climate of Fear, and see how exactly he became The Thing. Before I continue, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. These might be 2 small clicks for you, but trust me, they work wonders for us. And now, let's get to the story. Issue 1, The Prelude. MacReady, found near death on the Antarctic ice, goes through quite a rescue. A team from the Argentinian base discovers him half buried in snow and rushes him to safety. One of the researchers spots a wounded sea lion close by. He approaches, suspecting it needs help. He should not have, but he does, and that was bound to have its repercussions, right? The animal reveals itself as the Erskine Thing, still in the throes of assimilation, and attacks the rescuer without warning. Interestingly, the final fate of the Erskine Thing is never really revealed in the comics. Anyway, MacReady eventually regains consciousness in mainland Argentina under the care of Dr. Sabia Viale and the command of Sergeant Agapito Quintana. Dr. Viale explains that his dire hypothermia required a warmer environment for proper treatment. He remains uneasy, haunted by memories of the Thing's shape-shifting nature and lingering distrust. He notices a flock of sheep kept at the base. His paranoia grows, which only became worse by the knowledge that any living creature might mask an alien threat. That night, Agapito oversees a brief gathering where the staff and our man of the hour, Dr. Deseado, the chief scientist, exchange tense words. Dr. Deseado expresses contempt for human weaknesses, while Agapito insists that MacReady deserves compassion. Later, Agapito checks on MacReady, who seizes this chance to steal his machine gun. In a frenzied state, MacReady slaughters most of the sheep, certain that infection lurks among them. Agapito subdues him with a tranquilizer dart and assigns more guards to watch him. The base cook, Pablo, receives orders to salvage usable meat from the carnage. Pablo inspects the torn carcasses and notices a surviving sheep named Josito. He reaches out calmly, only to feel the wool tighten around his arm. Before he can pull away, Josito's fleece engulfs him. Terrified shouts bring the others. They find Pablo entangled in the monstrous Josito Thing, now massive from absorbing the rest of the flock. Gunfire rings out, seeming to wound the creature, but it quickly devours a careless soldier. Its writhing form splits into 2 smaller beings, each scuttling for safety. Ramon, Agapito's second-in-command, yells that bullets will not help. Agapito orders gasoline poured over the writhing creatures, then ignites them with a flamethrower. The flames reduce both horrors to ashes, but no one celebrates this victory. Dr. Viale points out that the sheep did not come from Antarctica, so the initial infection must lie with someone else. This implies a hidden threat among the base inhabitants. Suspicion intensifies. MacReady remains imprisoned, but the staff doubts whether he truly carried the infection. Dr. Deseado blames Agapito for ignoring clear dangers, while the sergeant grits his teeth in frustration. Even with the immediate crisis resolved, a grim shadow settles over the compound. The thought of an unseen carrier among them stirs dread. The knowledge that this horror can lurk in any form shakes everyone's resolve. Their trust frays under the fear that the next outbreak may come from a comrade's face or a friendly hand offered in greeting. In the super eerie quiet that follows, MacReady waits behind locked doors. He senses the tension spreading through the corridors and wonders whether his efforts to eliminate the threat backfired. The Erskine Thing remains at large, hidden in someone's blood. Each breath resonates with the question, who will the Thing strike next? Issue 2, The Monster in the Dark. Night descends on the Argentinian base and a tense mood grips every corner. Dr. Viale proposes tests to check for alien contamination, but her colleagues refuse. They suspect she may falsify results or tamper with their safety. The next morning, tempers flare when Sergeant Agapito and Dr. Deseado clash. Their argument erupts into violence, and Deseado grabs a gun, aiming it at Agapito. A soldier named Cruz reacts and fires back, killing Deseado on the spot. Agapito urges Cruz to bury the body and orders everyone to rest after this grim episode. While the others sleep, 2 soldiers stand guard. They spot a figure, thinking it a late-night prankster, and approach. Too late, they realize they face Deseado, who now looked anything but human. The resurrected form launches a surprise attack and assimilates both guards. By daybreak, Dr. Viale discovers that Agapito lies bound and MacReady has vanished with the flamethrower, leaving the communications shack in ashes. A team searches the compound and discovers an old aircraft hangar, where the Deseado thing was constructing a makeshift vessel. The creature impales a soldier on an airplane rotor, then faces MacReady and his flamethrower. Flames engulf the mutated body, yet a smaller ape-like horror peels away from the burning mass and charges into the surrounding jungle. MacReady pursues this fleeing Deseado thing. He soon stumbles upon an American commando unit led by Childs, who incinerates the horrifying thing with precision. Once the danger subsides, MacReady leads them to the besieged base. The Americans, wary of hidden threats, restrain the Argentinian personnel and prepare a blood test. MacReady steps up first. Childs applies a hot instrument to a sample of his blood. It leaps from the dish in a sudden, terrifying movement, confirming the worst possible outcome. The swirling paranoia hardens into dread as everyone grasps that MacReady himself may harbor the very menace he tried so hard to destroy. As far as the Deseado thing is concerned, it's an absolutely terrifying alien creature. Needless to say, the creature is absolutely twisted and unnatural. It stands tall, its body a grotesque mix of flesh and alien features, with tentacles, jagged limbs, and an elongated skeletal hand that gives it an uncanny resemblance to a xenomorph. The thing was so tall that the parts of an airplane looked like small objects in its limbs. Its surface is slimy and dripping, and constantly shifts as if alive on its own. The creature's shape is unnatural, with gaping maws and clawed appendages that make it look like a monstrous predator built for destruction. As I mentioned earlier, the Deseado thing looks pretty similar to a xenomorph. The huge legs reminded me of a xenomorph queen ready to slay her victims indiscriminately. I mean, just look at this thing. It's anyone's nightmare, especially with that huge maw-like head filled with innumerable sharp teeth. Then there's the talons and tentacles and whatnot. Unfortunately enough, the creature does not feature a lot in the comic. I mean, there's just a few panels here and there, but that's about it. Now, I don't quite want to leave the story unfinished, and moreover, what Deseado thing gets carried on by someone else, someone truly unexpected to say the least. And moreover, Deseado thing gets carried on by someone else, someone truly unexpected to say the least. So why don't we explore the 3rd and 4th issues? The conclusion. In issue 3, the situation escalates as tensions among the group reach a boiling point. Childs prepares to incinerate MacReady, accusing him of being a thing. However, Dr. Viale intervenes and reminds everyone that MacReady had previously attacked the Deseado thing, which should validate his humanity. During the heated argument, MacReady suddenly recalls that Deseado's body was buried by Cruz. He immediately accuses Cruz of being a thing and sets him ablaze. Cruz thing's head detaches in an effort to escape, but it's swiftly destroyed by the American commandos. The encounter results in the destruction of the camp's main hut, and MacReady slips away into the jungle. While hidden, MacReady conducts an improvised test to ensure he is still human, trying to calm his fears. Back at the base, the testing process continues, and several individuals, including Dr. Viale and Agapito, are confirmed to be human. Suddenly, another person undergoing the test transforms into a liquefied mass that engulfs one of the Americans. Childs torches the liquid thing, but in doing so, he burns down another hut, much to the irritation of the Argentinian team members. Later that night, Agapito confronts Dr. Viale, expressing his frustration about their supposed isolation. He vows to extract the truth from Childs, machete in hand, before storming off. Dr. Viale follows him, but instead encounters MacReady, who attempts to prove he is human. The situation becomes even more tense when Childs appears. To their shock, Childs reveals that he himself is the Thing. Before they can react, Childs transforms into a monstrous form. In issue 4, the Childs Thing unleashes its fury and chases MacReady and Dr. Viale through the jungle. They narrowly escape when they encounter the 2nd American Commando Team, which destroys the Childs Thing. Meanwhile, Agapito enters the officers' quarters and confronts Ramon, urging him to form an alliance. As they shake hands, Ramon reveals himself to be a Thing and begins assimilating Agapito through his arm. In a desperate move, Agapito amputates his arm with a machete, preventing full assimilation. As the survivors regroup, it becomes evident that apart from MacReady, Dr. Viale, and Agapito, everyone else has been assimilated. Injured and weakened, Agapito flees while the Things decide he is no longer a significant threat. However, they pack dynamite into one of the infected bodies and launch a suicide attack on the 2nd Commando Team. The explosion kills most of the team, but the commander survives long enough to radio for a napalm airstrike from the nearby aircraft carrier, requesting total annihilation of the base. MacReady and Dr. Viale eventually make their way to a disused hangar, where they find the Things constructing a ship, a project initiated by the Deseado Thing. Disheartened, MacReady nearly loses hope, but Agapito, despite his grievous injury, arrives and insists on fighting back. Together, they drench the hangar in gasoline and set it ablaze, causing the airplane fuel to explode. From the wreckage, a colossal spider-like thing emerges, towering over the hangar. The monstrous creature pursues the trio, but MacReady devises a risky plan. He orders Dr. Viale and the severely injured Agapito to split up, reasoning that the spider thing will consider him the greatest threat. MacReady successfully lures the creature back to the remnants of the main base. There, he confronts it head-on, daring it to kill him. Before the spider thing can strike, the airstrike requested earlier arrives. The napalm bombs obliterate the spider thing and the base in a fiery inferno. MacReady barely escapes the destruction and reunites with Dr. Viale and Agapito. As the dust settles, Dr. Viale asks MacReady if the nightmare is finally over. Unable to provide a definitive answer, MacReady tells her to focus on keeping Agapito alive until rescue arrives. The uncertainty lingers, leaving them to wonder if the terror has truly ended or if more horrors await. Marvelous verdict. Should you read Climate of Fear? The Thing from Another World, Climate of Fear, is a diverse continuation of John Carpenter's The Thing. While not the worst of Dark Horse Comics' adaptations, it marks the point where the series loses cohesion and focus, particularly regarding the aliens' assimilation process. The lack of a clear vision hampers the story, which struggles to replicate the suspense and psychological depth of the original film. John Arcudi, typically a competent writer, does not bring his best to this series. The narrative feels uninspired and misses key elements of The Thing. Arcudi's misunderstanding of how the alien infects its hosts is apparent, even from his responses to fan questions in the Readers from Another World segments. This disconnect undermines the credibility of the story and its attempt to build tension. And Jim W. Somerville's artwork fails to elevate the material. While functional, it lacks the polish and atmosphere of the first comic's painted pages. The art has a rushed, generic feel, emblematic of the 1990s comic style, which diminishes the immersive quality crucial to The Thing's horror roots. Where the film was a masterful slow burn, blending psychological tension with claustrophobic dread, the comic sacrifices subtlety for spectacle. The alien frequently attacks outright, often splitting off into smaller parts to return for another assault. This approach strips the creature of its cunning, making it feel less like a calculating predator and more like a mindless threat. The clever strategies and hidden menace that define the film are largely absent. The story does introduce some intriguing concepts, such as the alien attempting to manipulate blood tests, but these ideas are underdeveloped. Attempts to recreate the film's paranoia often fall flat, as characters behave irrationally, and even the alien seems less intelligent. The jungle setting, while a potential opportunity to raise the stakes, fails to deliver. Instead of expanding the scope, it feels like a scaled-down retreat from the Antarctic base. The comic briefly explains that the alien cannot infect plants, but it leaves questions unanswered. Could it not assimilate insects or small mammals to escape? The lack of exploration into these possibilities makes the setting feel underutilized. The story's reliance on thought bubbles further detracts from its effectiveness. In the film, the audience never knew what any character was thinking, which amplified the paranoia and tension. Here, the insight into characters' thoughts undermines the suspense, making it clear who is human and who is not. This narrative choice drains the comic of the uncertainty that was so central to the original's atmosphere. The most striking element of the series is John Higgins' painted covers, which capture the essence of the thing far better than the content within. However, strong covers cannot compensate for a lackluster story and uninspired art. Ultimately, Climate of Fear is an unremarkable continuation. It fails to match the care and attention to detail that Carpenter brought to his film. While it introduces new ideas, its execution is rushed, with fast-paced action taking precedence over tension and suspense. Hardcore fans of the thing might find some enjoyment, but it offers little to those outside that niche. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.